Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. Unfortunately, at the time that I filmed this video, I was not able to obtain some more Kingdom figures, which we can blame the government and COVID on. But in the meantime, I did manage to score a couple of the Studio 86 figures, so we'll finish off the month with those. And this time around, we have probably one of the more anticipated figures, a sweep. Now this represents one of the few times in the Transformer toy line that we have gotten a generic character. The first time that occurred was back in 1985 when we got the Mini Spy figures as a bonus figure with many of our carded figures. As back then, those were intended to promote the new rub sign feature that the Transformer toys were including. So you could wind up with a random Autobot or Decepticon character that was truly generic and had nothing to go by. Of course, this was a sudden change as Hasbro's sister boys toy line, G.I. Joe, constantly featured generic characters, usually in the form of Cobra forces. Aside from the major characters in Cobra, a lot of the characters that were released as figures were generic troopers or drivers for their vehicles. The only other major boys' toy line from the 1980s to get a generic figure was the Masters of the Universe line, as near the end of its run, they released a Horde Trooper, based on the robotic soldiers that frequently appeared in the She-Ra television series. The Horde Trooper was the only generic army builder type character released in that line, and thus, now 30 years later, has become a very popular character due to being the only generic army builder. So let's face it, nowadays, those of us adult collectors, we got the money, but our parents usually would not buy us extra generic guys, figuring you have one, that's all you need. Now we can afford to buy more. And that's probably what Hasbro's hoping we'll do with this sweep figure. Since Scourge had two sweeps, made out of the Insecticons Kickback and Shrapnel, they're going to hope that we will want two, so that way we can display them alongside Scourge. But right now I've only got one, mainly because I have only found one. I'm not sure I'm going to get a second one, mainly due to space constraints, and I really don't have a place to display these guys, so I'm probably only going to wind up with one. Now, we're going to get the elephant out of the room here with this and say, yes, it is a redeco of Scourge. And I've got Scourge standing by here off camera, and we will show you that so that you know if you end up buying these figures loose at some point in the future, you'll be able to tell which one you are getting. Of course, we'll get the other obvious elephant in the room out of the way by moving the sweep out of the way to show you the backdrop. Unfortunately, it is the exact same backdrop that came with Scourge. So that's kind of a disappointment, but I guess this way Hasbro doesn't commit to saying which figure this guy is made from. That's one way of looking at it, but let's face it, the sweeps really only made their big appearance when Unicron made them. After that, they just kind of floated in the background. Alright, so we'll get this out of the way. Alright, here's the sweep again, so that you can all see him, and then Coming in on the other side, we will bring in Scourge, their leader. Now, as you can see, Scourge is in a darker color. Scourge is primarily colored in purple, whereas the sweeps are in a light blue color. And that also will translate over to their guns. Their guns are in the same color that matches the figure. Now, of course, all that's left is their energy bursts from their guns. And unfortunately, they are pretty much identical to each other. There is not really anything to tell them apart from one another, so that's a probable downside, but it's not a major one per se. But there is one other way that you can determine which one is which without any problems. And I'm going to show that to you here as definitive proof. Because I do know there are some dealers out there that are stupid, and they will tell you it's not, and they will call you stupid as well for listening to me, even though I've got the evidence right here in front of you for you all to see. The biggest other difference is their hands. On Scourge, his right hand is done up in a closed fist, intended for him to hold his gun in his right hand, and his left hand is kept in an open hand. Kind of like the way you saw how I had the sweep hold his gun. Scourge can hold it in his right hand and then support it in his left. Now here on the sweep has a closed fist on his left hand, and his right hand is open to allow him to support his gun. So, basically, one way to properly look at it, Scourge is right-handed, and the sweeps are left-handed. That may not be officially canon, but that's the best way to remember that. Scourge will be right-handed, and the sweeps will be left-handed. Okay, while we've got them loose, we might as well take a look at the sweep's loose parts, if I can hold on to them properly. Here is, of course, his gun. Again, it's in the same mold as Scourge's gun, but it's done in the same light blue that the sweep is in. And, of course, we have the energy blast, which, as we showed earlier, is in the exact same color as the one that comes with Scourge. This is in a bendable plastic, so it is uncommon to find it bent a bit due to how tightly it fits in the package. As you can see, it snaps onto the end of the gun just like that. But it can also be attached to Scourge or the sweep himself. And we'll cover that a little later in the video. Right now, we'll take a look at the sweep's articulation, and since, as we stated earlier, he is a redo of Scourge, he has exactly the same articulation. You can turn his head from side to side, and it is on a small ball joint, so it will look up and down a little. His arms can be raised out about so far. And they will rotate at the shoulder all the way, but you will have to shift the wing in order to get it to do that. His arms can be bent at the elbow 90 degrees, like so. And his arms do swivel at the bicep, so he does have G.I. Joe style battle grip. And he also can have his hands rotated a bit at the wrist. Haven't done that very much this figure, so it's very snug. The sweep can twist at the hips. You can spread his legs apart into almost full splits. You can raise his leg up at the hip just under 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee 90 degrees. So the sweep does have a fair amount of articulation going for him. Okay, to transform the sweep, it is exactly the same process that you would do with Scourge. We start by pressing his legs together. You're going to separate his arms at the shoulder and fold them down, because right here on the side of his arm there's a little hole in there, and it should attach to this post protruding from his leg. You do that for both arms. Of course, the legs like to separate, so this will hopefully help hold them together a bit. Now we're going to come around back here to his wings, and we're going to separate them from the back and spread them out like so. And then we will unfold these parts down. This little gray piece you're going to line up along the side, because there's a little blue tab in there. So you're going to try to connect the armor to it. Just kind of have it ready to. There we go, just like that. Then at the lower portion of the wing, you'll fold out another gray section. Then we're going to stand up the booster rockets here at the back. Then we're going to come back to Scourge's head, and we're going to rotate the piece on top. Then we'll lift up this little portion here on his back. It folds up, and the point should go right in the little hole there, just like that. Then we bring this flap out straight, and then it should detach with the head. You just fold it all the way down, because there's a couple of holes here in the back of that piece, and they should connect onto these posts on the back of his legs. Once you've got that secured, you will fold in his heels, followed by folding up the rest of his feet. Then we'll make sure that this piece here that's protruding is all the way down, because then we're going to bring the wings in and connect them not only together up here at the nose, but to fasten them all over the body. There isn't a lot of connection points for that, so just going to have to press everything firmly together. There we go. Once that's connected, make sure that the armor here along his arms did stay attached. Just like that. And then we will fold his wings underneath. And then this piece of armor here folds up and covers his face. And then this gives us the sweep's alternate mode of a Cybertronian spacecraft or hovercraft. Of course, he's got a hole here on the side so that you can mount his gun. And you can either attach the energy blast to the gun, or as the instructions also show, you can attach it to the disintegrator cannon on the top. Just exactly like that. And of course, for comparison's sake, right here is Scourge in a similar mode. Okay, one last thing, and then we will give our final thoughts on the sweep. And that is, there's a mode that allows you to have his head exposed while in the vehicle form. And the first thing to do to get him ready for that is we've got to unfold the wings here. And of course, we remove this section that's covering his face. And we'll separate the pieces connecting the arms, and then unfold the wings out again. This does take a little wrangling, so do be patient. There we go. Got one out. Should theoretically get the other one out. There we go. And then now you're going to separate the platform here where his head is connected. Fold it up only. And then adjust so that it looks like his head is floating here. And then we will reclose the wings in. And of course, as you're getting it closed up, we're going to line up the platform, and these two pieces sticking out here at the back, well, they should connect into some holes alongside the engines. So, line them up and get them in there. Then we will fold the wings back under and make sure the armor here along the arms is reattached. And then there you go. You have a menacing face peeking out. Which, while adding the accessories to it as the instructions show, at least keeps you from losing the parts, it still doesn't change the fact that looks rather silly. But then again, you can do the same thing with Scourge, and it looks just as silly. So now we get to my thoughts. I'm glad that we finally got a generic character for the Transformers line. It is something that has been long overdue. The sweep, however, while it's a nice figure, it is also just a small disappointment in the fact that it does truly reek of Hasbro's cheapness, since it is just a repaint of Scourge. The only retool to it was that they changed the hands. It was nice to see that they took the effort to make sure that the hands were correct on this, so at least somebody there is paying attention. But I think a few more things done to it to make it look a little different would have been nice, but then again, these were probably based on the animation models, and they really didn't do much to differentiate Scourge and the sweeps, since the sweeps were more kept in the background. And after the events of the movie, the sweeps were never really mentioned or shown again. We only saw Scourge. So it's nice to finally see them get a character. Even though it's the same toy as Scourge, it's still not a bad toy altogether. I did enjoy how Scourge turned out, and the sweep does carry a lot of the same benefits and features that Scourge did. So, it's definitely one that's worth a spot on your shelf, but it'll be up to each of you to decide if you want to track down a second one for your displays. At any rate, that's my review of the Studio 86 version of the Sweep. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And regardless of whether you did or not, we do ask that you all please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel, because we do appreciate all the feedback here. This is Sparkster1701, and I want to remind you that while the sweeps were swept under the rug, we shouldn't sweep each other under the rugs as well. Remember to be kind to your friends and neighbors and loved ones. I'll catch you all later.